Have you ever wondered what secret teachings could be hidden within the wisdom of one of the greatest philosophers of all time? Teachings that might just change your life. Imagine this. It's 4 a.m. and you're overwhelmed by your to-do list, social pressures, and the weight of the world. You start scrolling through your phone, hoping for a distraction. But what if, instead of distractions, you had access to ancient wisdom that could help you face life's chaos with calm and resilience? Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, left us with more than just his famous meditations. His lost wisdom holds powerful secrets about how to master our inner world and thrive despite external chaos. In today's video, we're diving deep into these forgotten teachings. Stay with us till the end, because we're going to uncover how you can apply these timeless lessons to transform your everyday struggles into personal growth. Let's unlock the secrets of Marcus's Stoic mind together. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. Let's start by painting a picture of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor whose reign lasted from 161 to 180 AD. Known as the philosopher king, Marcus wasn't just a ruler. He was a thinker, a writer, and a man who deeply embraced Stoicism, one of the most profound philosophical movements of his time. But what makes Marcus' teaching so unique? While many Roman emperors were focused on power, conquest, and glory, Marcus was far more interested in virtue, ethics, and self-control. His personal journal, Meditations, wasn't meant to be published. Instead, it was a collection of his private thoughts, written as guidance to himself. But it has since become one of the most influential texts in philosophy. Imagine this: the most powerful man in the world, ruling a vast empire, taking time to reflect on how to be a better person. No one demanded this of him. It was a purely personal quest for wisdom. Marcus had everything: fame, fortune, and influence, yet he constantly reminded himself that none of these external things truly mattered. For him, the only thing of real importance was how we respond to life. How often do we today get caught up in the pursuit of things that don't really matter? How often do we forget that our true strength comes from within? Now, as much as we know from Meditations, historians believe that many of Marcus's writings have been lost to time. Scholars speculate that Marcus might have written additional works on Stoicism and personal conduct that never survived the centuries. Imagine the profound insights contained in those missing pages. What secrets could they reveal about facing hardship, loss, and the complexities of human nature? Even though these teachings remain lost, we can still reconstruct the essence of his wisdom from the existing works and historical accounts from his peers. One thing is clear: Marcus's philosophical insights were far beyond the surface-level teachings many leaders offer today. He didn't preach from an ivory tower. Instead, he lived his philosophy day in and day out, even amidst the tremendous pressures of war, plague, and political instability. Think about the challenges Marcus faced as emperor. He led Rome during the Antonine Plague, a devastating epidemic that killed millions. He dealt with constant invasions from barbarian tribes and betrayal within his ranks. Yet, through it all, he maintained his stoic calm. Could you imagine having that level of composure and strength under pressure? What would your life look like if you applied even a fraction of that resilience to your own daily challenges? One of the most vital aspects of Marcus Aurelius's teachings revolves around the idea of mastering the inner citadel. This is a metaphor for the fortress of our mind, the place where we have complete control regardless of what happens in the world outside. For Marcus, the inner citadel was sacred. It represented the core of our being, where no external event, No war, no plague, no criticism could shake us if we chose not to let it. Marcus's life exemplified this principle. Despite the constant pressures of ruling an empire, he focused on controlling his emotions, his reactions, and his thoughts. There's a famous quote from Meditations: "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But how can we, in modern life, build this same inner citadel? It starts with recognizing that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. You can react with anger and frustration, or you can choose to remain calm, recognizing that the external event is beyond your control. By practicing self-control in small moments, we prepare ourselves for larger challenges. Consider how Marcus Aurelius had to make life and death decisions daily. He couldn't afford to let emotional reactions cloud his judgment. The practice of Stoicism gave him the mental clarity to lead with wisdom. And this is a lesson we can carry into our own lives. How often do we let external events dictate our mood, when instead we could choose to remain unshaken? Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the concept of amor fati, a Latin phrase that means love of fate. It's the idea that we should not only accept what happens to us, but embrace it wholeheartedly. Marcus faced countless trials during his reign, but instead of lamenting his fate, he accepted it as part of life's grand design. Imagine enduring the loss of a loved one, failing at something you worked hard for, or experiencing rejection. Most people would feel anger, sadness, or frustration. But Marcus believed that these setbacks were essential parts of the human experience and should be met with love, not resistance. Why? Because these challenges shape us into stronger, wiser individuals. By loving your fate, you develop resilience. No matter what life throws at you, instead of asking, "Why me?" you learn to ask, "What can I learn from this?" This shift in mindset is incredibly powerful. Imagine applying this in your own life. How much more peaceful would you feel if you accepted every challenge as a stepping stone rather than an obstacle? Marcus often reflected on this principle in Meditations, where he encouraged himself to face every difficulty as an opportunity for growth. For example, during the invasions that threatened Rome's borders, instead of being overwhelmed by the constant wars, Marcus embraced the chance to prove his resilience and leadership. Likewise, how could we embrace our own struggles, seeing them as opportunities for growth rather than roadblocks? Another core Stoic principle that Marcus Aurelius often meditated on is memento mori, which translates to "remember you must die." While this may sound morbid at first, it's actually a profound tool for living a more meaningful life. Marcus frequently reminded himself that death is inevitable. For many, this would create anxiety, but for Marcus, it was a reminder to live fully in the present. Imagine waking up each day with a deep awareness that this could be your last. How would you spend your time? Would you worry less about trivial matters? Would you express more gratitude? Memento mori forces us to cut through the noise of daily life and focus on what truly matters. In Meditations, Marcus reflected on this often. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. For him, this wasn't about fearing death, but using it as a catalyst to live a life of purpose and virtue. Instead of getting bogged down in temporary concerns, fame, wealth, status, he focused on his character and actions. How often do we let our fears of the future or regrets from the past prevent us from truly living? Marcus teaches us that by accepting the reality of death, we can free ourselves to live in alignment with our values. By keeping death in mind, Marcus Aurelius was able to remain calm during crises. He didn't panic or become overwhelmed because he knew that death was simply part of the natural order. Instead of letting fear of the unknown control him, he embraced the inevitability of death with grace. Could we adopt this perspective in our own lives to avoid the petty anxieties that often consume our days? For Marcus Aurelius, virtue was everything. But when he spoke of virtue, it wasn't in the modern sense of just doing good deeds. Virtue in Stoicism was about living in harmony with nature, fulfilling your role in the world, and acting in accordance with reason. For Marcus, being virtuous meant striving to be the best version of oneself in every situation, regardless of external circumstances. In meditations, Marcus regularly reminded himself that virtue is the only true good. All other things, fame, wealth, physical comfort, are indifferent. They can come and go, but virtue remains constant. So what does it mean to live virtuously? According to Marcus, it means being wise, courageous, just, and temperate in all things. Wisdom guides our actions. Courage gives us the strength to act on that wisdom. Justice ensures fairness in our dealings with others. And temperance helps us maintain self-control. Think about your own life. When faced with a challenge, do you act based on your emotions, or do you strive to act according to reason and virtue? Marcus believed that no matter how chaotic the world becomes, we always have the choice to act virtuously. Even as emperor, with unimaginable power at his fingertips, Marcus Aurelius chose virtue over self-interest. He led Rome through wars, plague, and political unrest, but he didn't waver in his commitment to ethical leadership. How often do we find ourselves compromising our values for convenience or gain? Marcus' teachings remind us that no matter the situation, we must hold fast to our principles, because in the end, they are the only things that truly matter. Marcus Aurelius's reign was marked by constant suffering, both personal and external. He faced the relentless pressure of governing an empire, dealt with invasions, political betrayal, and the devastating Antonine Plague. On a personal level, he lost several of his children to early deaths. Yet through all of this, Marcus embodied resilience. In Stoic philosophy, suffering isn't something to be avoided. It's something to be embraced as a natural part of life. Marcus believed that suffering presents an opportunity for growth. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This idea is at the core of Stoic resilience. Whatever obstacles we face, they are not roadblocks, but stepping stones. Consider the trials you've faced in your life. Have they not, in some way, shaped you into the person you are today? Marcus Aurelius encourages us to not shy away from hardship, but to use it as a tool for self-improvement. Each challenge we face is an opportunity to practice patience, courage, and wisdom. Marcus often reflected on the idea that life is full of inevitable hardships, but it's how we respond that defines us. He had no illusions about life being easy. As emperor, he dealt with unimaginable pressure. But instead of letting it crush him, he used it as a way to cultivate inner strength. This is a lesson we can all take into our lives. Instead of avoiding difficulty, we can learn to view it as a chance to grow. How often do we wish for an easy life when, in reality, it's through adversity that we find our greatest strength? Marcus Aurelius often spoke about the importance of maintaining mental clarity in a world full of distractions. He believed that our mind is our greatest asset, and that guarding it from confusion, negativity, and unnecessary worries was key to living a fulfilling life. In today's world, filled with constant distractions, social media, news cycles, and endless notifications, Marcus's advice is more relevant than ever. He wrote in Meditations, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. For Marcus, the mind was like a fortress, and it was up to each of us to guard it from external influences. This doesn't mean shutting out the world, but rather being mindful of what we allow to affect us. How often do we let the opinions of others, the chaos of news headlines, or the stress of daily life cloud our thinking? One of Marcus's key strategies for maintaining mental clarity was regular reflection and journaling. By writing down his thoughts and evaluating his day, he was able to keep his mind sharp and focused. He urged himself to remain calm, to think rationally, and to not let trivial matters disturb his peace. In today's fast-paced world, this practice is invaluable. By taking time each day to reflect on our thoughts, we can maintain control over our minds and avoid being swept away by the chaos of life. Imagine taking a few minutes each day to write down your thoughts, reflect on your actions, and clear your mind of unnecessary clutter. How much more peaceful and focused could you be? Marcus Aurelius believed that mental clarity was the foundation of a virtuous life, and this is a practice we can all adopt to bring more calm and wisdom into our own lives. In meditations, Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself about the inevitability of dealing with difficult people, whether it was ungrateful subjects, treacherous politicians, or scheming rivals. Marcus knew that toxic individuals were a fact of life, but instead of responding with anger or frustration, he practiced understanding and compassion. He would write, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." Marcus's approach to negativity was both practical and compassionate. He understood that people often act out of ignorance or pain, and rather than letting their behavior affect his peace, he reminded himself to stay grounded in his own principles. By expecting negativity, he was never surprised by it, and by responding with virtue rather than anger, he maintained control over his reactions. In today's world, where we are constantly exposed to negativity, whether online or in real life, this lesson is invaluable. How often do we let other people's behavior ruin our mood or disrupt our peace? Marcus's teaching reminds us that while we can't control how others act, we can control how we respond. We can choose not to engage with negativity and instead focus on our own character. The next time you encounter someone difficult, think of Marcus Aurelius. Instead of reacting emotionally, take a step back and remind yourself that their actions don't have to affect you. By practicing this, you can maintain your inner peace, no matter what toxic individuals throw your way. One of the most overlooked yet powerful teachings of Marcus Aurelius is the value of silence. In today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with noise, from social media, the 24-hour news cycle, and even our own inner chatter, the art of silence has been largely forgotten. But for Marcus, silence was a tool for reflection, wisdom, and inner peace. Marcus often reflected on the power of silence in meditations. He believed that periods of quiet contemplation were essential for gaining clarity and perspective. He wrote, "Be silent, or let your words be worth more than silence." This simple phrase reflects a profound Stoic belief that silence is often more valuable than words, especially when words are spoken in haste or without careful thought. Imagine how different our world would be if more people practiced silence before reacting. How often do we say things we regret simply because we didn't take a moment to pause? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that silence is not just about the absence of noise, it's about creating space for thought and reflection. In that silence, we find the wisdom to respond rather than react, to observe rather than judge. In our own lives, incorporating silence can be transformative. Instead of filling every moment with distractions, we can take time for quiet reflection. This could be as simple as a few minutes of silence in the morning or turning off the noise during your commute. These small moments of stillness allow us to recharge mentally and emotionally. They help us connect more deeply with ourselves, fostering greater clarity in our decisions and interactions. By practicing silence, we create a mental environment where we can think more clearly and act more virtuously. Marcus Aurelius knew that in silence, we can find the strength to face life's challenges with wisdom and calm. In today's society, we often place immense value on fame, power, and status. But Marcus Aurelius, a man who held the highest position in the Roman Empire, constantly reminded himself that these things were fleeting. To Marcus, fame and power were illusions, temporary distractions from what truly mattered: virtue and character. Throughout meditations, Marcus reflected on how brief and insignificant our lives are in the grand scheme of the universe. He wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you." These words are a powerful reminder that no matter how much we achieve, it will all be forgotten in time. History may remember our names for a few generations, but eventually we will fade into obscurity. Instead of being disheartened by this, Marcus found freedom in it. By recognizing the ephemeral nature of life, he was able to focus on what truly mattered, living in accordance with his values, being just, wise, and temperate. Fame and power were to him distractions from the more important task of self-improvement. Think about how much time we spend chasing recognition or external success. Whether it's through social media, our careers, or material possessions, many of us seek validation from the outside world. But Marcus teaches us that these things are temporary and ultimately meaningless. True fulfillment comes from cultivating inner virtues, not external rewards. In our own lives, we can take a lesson from Marcus Aurelius by shifting our focus away from the pursuit of fame and toward the pursuit of inner peace. By letting go of the need for recognition, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress and anxiety. Instead of seeking approval from others, we can focus on becoming the best version of ourselves, knowing that this is the only thing of lasting value. Building on the previous point, one of the core Stoic lessons that Marcus Aurelius emphasized was the importance of non-attachment to external success. For Marcus, external events and achievements were not in our control, and therefore they should not dictate our sense of worth or happiness. He believed that the only thing we have control over is our own mind, our own actions, and our own choices. Consider how often we measure our worth by external standards: how much money we make, how many likes we get on social media, how others perceive us. Marcus Aurelius teaches us to focus instead on what we can control: our thoughts, our character, and our behavior. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This teaching aligns closely with the Stoic concept of indifference to externals. For Marcus, things like wealth, status, and success were neither good nor bad. They were indifferent. What mattered was how we handled them. Did we let them control us? Did we base our happiness on them? Or did we remain detached, focused on living virtuously regardless of external outcomes? Marcus himself was a man of immense power and wealth, yet he constantly reminded himself that these things did not define him. He viewed his position as emperor as a role he was given to play, but it was not who he was at his core. His true identity was rooted in his virtues, in his ability to act with wisdom, justice, and temperance. This lesson is particularly important in today's achievement-driven society. How often do we tie our self-worth to our accomplishments? Marcus Aurelius challenges us to see success as something outside of ourselves, something that can come and go without affecting our inner peace. By practicing non-attachment to external success, we can cultivate a sense of fulfillment that is not dependent on circumstances. Although Stoicism is often associated with emotional restraint, Marcus Aurelius' teachings reveal a deep sense of compassion and empathy for others. In meditations, he frequently reminded himself to be understanding of the flaws and shortcomings of others, recognizing that everyone is fighting their own internal battles. He wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" Marcus believed that all human beings are interconnected and that we should treat others with kindness and understanding, even when they behave poorly. He recognized that people often act out of ignorance or misunderstanding, and he encouraged himself to respond with patience rather than judgment. This approach to human interaction is a key component of Stoic compassion. It's about recognizing our shared humanity and treating others with the same empathy we would wish for ourselves. This teaching is especially powerful in our modern world, where division, anger, and intolerance seem to be everywhere. It's easy to judge others for their actions or opinions, but Marcus Aurelius challenges us to look deeper. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, we can choose to respond with empathy and understanding. How often do we criticize others for their flaws without acknowledging our own? Marcus reminds us that we are all imperfect, and that by showing compassion, we not only help others, but also cultivate our own inner peace. Imagine applying this principle in your daily life. The next time you're frustrated with someone, whether it's a co-worker, a friend, or even a stranger, pause for a moment. Instead of reacting with anger, ask yourself, what might this person be going through? How can I respond with empathy instead of judgment? By practicing Stoic compassion, we not only improve our relationships with others, but also foster a sense of calm within ourselves. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that kindness is not a weakness, but a strength. And by showing empathy toward others, we strengthen our own character. Marcus on leadership, leading by example, not force. As the ruler of the Roman Empire, Marcus Aurelius was in a position of immense power, yet he didn't believe in leading through force or coercion. Instead, he believed that the best way to lead was by example. For Marcus, true leadership was about embodying the virtues you wish to see in others, not about imposing your will on them. Throughout his reign, Marcus Aurelius consistently demonstrated Stoic principles in his leadership. He remained humble, fair, and just, even when he had the power to act otherwise. His belief in leading by example can be seen in his daily conduct. He worked tirelessly to improve himself, knowing that his actions would speak louder than any decrees or commands. This is a timeless lesson for anyone in a leadership role, whether it's in business, family, or community. How often do we see leaders who demand respect, but fail to earn it through their own actions? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that true respect is earned by living in accordance with one's values and setting an example for others to follow. Leadership is not about dominance. It's about inspiring others through virtue and character. In our own lives, we can apply this Stoic lesson by focusing on being the kind of person we want others to be. Whether it's at work, in relationships, or in our communities, we can lead by example by living with integrity, fairness, and humility. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that real leadership is not about titles or authority. It's about influencing others through the strength of our own character. Anger is a universal human emotion, but Marcus Aurelius believed that it was one of the most destructive forces, both personally and socially. He wrote extensively about managing anger, viewing it as an emotion that clouds judgment and leads to irrational actions. In Meditations, he advised himself, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the circumstances that aroused it in us?" Marcus understood that anger usually arises from our frustration with other people or events we can't control. But instead of letting anger consume him, he constantly reminded himself to remain calm, detached, and focused on reason. This approach helped him make clear-headed decisions in the midst of crisis, a crucial skill for any leader. But this lesson isn't just for emperors. In our daily lives, how often do we let small irritations, like traffic jams, rude comments, or unmet expectations, lead to anger that spirals out of control? Marcus' wisdom teaches us to pause and consider whether our anger is really worth it. Is the situation truly deserving of the energy we waste on anger, or could we respond in a more thoughtful way? One of Marcus's strategies for overcoming anger was to remind himself of the common humanity in others. When someone acted poorly, he would remind himself that they are just as prone to mistakes and flaws as he was. He would also reflect on his own shortcomings, recognizing that he too had moments of weakness. This practice of empathy helped him to respond to others with patience rather than frustration. Think about the last time you were angry. Did it help you resolve the situation, or did it only create more tension? Marcus Aurelius encourages us to reflect on these moments and strive to respond with reason rather than emotion. By mastering our anger, we not only protect our peace of mind, but also strengthen our ability to navigate challenges with wisdom. One of the central themes in Marcus Aurelius' writings is the importance of duty. As a Stoic, Marcus believed that every person has a role to play in life, and fulfilling that role with integrity is a moral obligation. Whether that role is as a leader, a parent, a worker, or a friend, Marcus argued that we must embrace our responsibilities with full commitment and without complaint. Marcus himself embodied this principle throughout his reign. Despite the hardships he faced, constant wars, the loss of children, and the pressures of ruling a vast empire, he never shirked his duty. In Meditations, he often reminded himself that his personal comfort or desires were secondary to the greater good of the people he served. He wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work.' As a human being, what do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for?" This sense of duty is something we can all learn from. How often do we approach our roles in life with reluctance or resentment, wishing we could escape our responsibilities? Marcus teaches us that instead of viewing our duties as burdens, we should see them as opportunities to live in accordance with our values. Whether it's showing up for work, taking care of a loved one, or contributing to our communities, fulfilling our role is what gives life purpose and meaning. By embracing our duties with a sense of honor, we cultivate resilience and find fulfillment in even the most mundane tasks. This is particularly relevant in today's world, where people often feel disconnected from their work or responsibilities. Marcus reminds us that the key to a meaningful life lies in accepting and fulfilling our role, whatever it may be, with dedication and a sense of purpose. One of Marcus Aurelius' most powerful personal practices was journaling. Meditations itself is essentially a collection of Marcus' private reflections, notes he wrote to himself to remind him of Stoic principles and to help him stay grounded in the face of life's challenges. This habit of journaling served as a form of self-reflection, allowing Marcus to observe his thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, and to align them with his Stoic ideals. For Marcus, writing was a tool for self-improvement. Through his journals, he could evaluate his actions and thoughts without the pressure of public scrutiny. This allowed him to be brutally honest with himself, acknowledging his flaws and mistakes while also encouraging himself to do better. His writings were not meant for anyone else's eyes. They were a way for him to hold himself accountable and to keep his mind focused on what truly mattered. In today's world, journaling has become a popular method for self-reflection and mental clarity, but Marcus's approach goes deeper. He didn't just write about his feelings or experiences. He used his journal to remind himself of Stoic wisdom and to reinforce the habits of mind he wanted to cultivate. He would ask himself questions like, "Am I living according to my principles? Am I letting external events control my peace of mind? How can I better fulfill my duties?" This practice is something we can all adopt. By setting aside time each day to reflect on our thoughts and actions, we create a space to evaluate whether we are living in alignment with our values. It's not about writing perfectly or documenting every detail of the day. It's about taking a moment to pause, reflect, and refocus. Journaling can help us identify areas for growth, strengthen our resolve to act with integrity, and remind ourselves of the bigger picture. Imagine starting each day with a few moments of reflection, writing down what you aim to achieve, not in terms of tasks, but in terms of character. How do you want to approach your day? How can you embody the virtues of wisdom, courage, and kindness? Marcus Aurelius's practice of journaling is a timeless tool for personal growth, and by adopting it, we too can cultivate greater self-awareness and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius often contemplated the vastness of the universe and humanity's small place within it. For Marcus, reflecting on the cosmos was a way to keep things in perspective. He believed that by recognizing the insignificance of individual events within the grand scheme of the universe, we can detach ourselves from the petty concerns and anxieties that often dominate our lives. In meditations, he frequently reminded himself of the transient nature of human life. He wrote, "Look at the immensity of time behind you, and to the left, the infinite future. These things are for you, as if they had never been." By contemplating the vastness of time and space, Marcus found a sense of peace. The worries of the day, whether they were about political affairs, personal problems, or even his own mortality, seemed trivial when viewed against the backdrop of eternity. This cosmic perspective is a central theme in Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that we are all part of a greater whole, a universe governed by natural laws. For Marcus, this meant accepting that many things are beyond our control and that our individual lives are just a small part of a much larger, interconnected system. By focusing on the bigger picture, Marcus was able to maintain his composure in the face of personal and political crises. Think about your own life for a moment. How often do we let small setbacks or daily stresses consume us, forgetting that these moments are just a tiny fraction of our overall existence? Marcus's cosmic view reminds us to step back and see the bigger picture. When we remember that our lives are just a brief moment in time, many of the things we worry about lose their importance. This doesn't mean that our actions don't matter. In fact, Marcus would argue that we should strive to live virtuously because our time here is so brief. But it does mean that we don't need to be weighed down by every little concern. By adopting a cosmic perspective, we can approach life with a sense of calm and acceptance, knowing that we are part of something much larger than ourselves. For Marcus Aurelius, happiness wasn't something to be pursued directly. Instead, he believed that happiness was a byproduct of living in accordance with one's values and embracing simplicity. Marcus didn't see happiness as the result of wealth, pleasure, or external success. In fact, he often wrote about the dangers of becoming attached to these things. Instead, he believed that true happiness comes from within, from living a virtuous life, being true to oneself, and finding contentment in the present moment. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." Marcus didn't equate happiness with comfort or luxury. Even as emperor, with access to unimaginable wealth and power, he often reminded himself that these external things were fleeting and ultimately irrelevant to his inner peace. What does this mean for us today? In a world where we are constantly encouraged to seek happiness through material success, Marcus's teachings remind us that the key to contentment lies in simplifying our lives and focusing on what truly matters. It's about letting go of the endless pursuit of more and learning to find joy in the present moment, in our relationships, and in living according to our values. This doesn't mean that we should reject all forms of success or pleasure. Rather, it's about recognizing that these things are not the source of true happiness. By focusing on inner fulfillment, by being kind, just, and wise, we can experience a deeper, more lasting sense of joy. One of the core insights Marcus Aurelius constantly reflected on was the impermanence of everything around us. He believed that change is the fundamental law of nature, and to resist it is to resist the very fabric of life. In Meditations, he wrote, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change, and accustom yourself to consider that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are, and to make new things like them." For Marcus, the key to inner peace was not in trying to prevent change, but in learning to accept it. Whether it was the rise and fall of empires, the death of loved ones, or the shifting of seasons, Marcus believed that everything in life is in a constant state of flux. He reminded himself that trying to hold on to things or resisting their inevitable change only leads to suffering. This teaching is particularly relevant in today's fast-paced world, where change seems to happen at an ever-accelerating rate. How often do we find ourselves wishing for things to stay the same, clinging to the past, or fearing the uncertainty of the future? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that instead of resisting change, we should embrace it as part of the natural order. By accepting impermanence, we free ourselves from the anxiety of trying to control the uncontrollable. Imagine applying this mindset to your own life. Whether it's a career change, the end of a relationship, or even the aging process, we can find peace by accepting that change is inevitable and that it often brings opportunities for growth. Marcus believed that through acceptance, we could navigate life's transitions with grace and wisdom, rather than fear and resistance. Another profound teaching from Marcus Aurelius is the Stoic practice of controlling desire. Rather than constantly chasing after things we don't have, Marcus believed that true contentment comes from wanting what we already have. This practice of aligning our desires with our reality is a powerful antidote to dissatisfaction and anxiety. In Meditations, Marcus wrote, "Do not dream of possessing what you do not have. Rather, reflect on the blessings of what you do have and how much you would miss them if they were not there." This perspective shift allows us to see the value in our current circumstances, no matter how modest or imperfect they may seem. Think about how often we are driven by the desire for more success, more wealth, more recognition. This endless pursuit creates a constant state of dissatisfaction where we're always focused on what's missing rather than appreciating what's present. Marcus teaches us that by reining in our desires and focusing on the present, we can find peace and happiness. This doesn't mean we should stop striving for improvement or growth. Instead, it's about recognizing that happiness isn't found in external achievements or acquisitions, but in appreciating the blessings we already have. By practicing gratitude for what we have, we can shift our mindset from one of lack to one of abundance, fostering a sense of contentment that no external success can provide. Consider applying this principle in your own life. Take a moment each day to reflect on the things you already have: your health, your relationships, your opportunities, and imagine how much you would miss them if they were gone. This simple practice of gratitude can help recalibrate your desires and lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment. Stoic detachment. Marcus on letting go of what you can't control. One of the most well-known Stoic principles that Marcus Aurelius lived by is the practice of detachment, letting go of things that are beyond our control. This teaching is central to Stoic philosophy and is woven throughout meditations. Marcus believed that most of our suffering comes from trying to control things that we simply can't. Instead, he encouraged himself and others to focus only on what is within our control, our own thoughts, actions, and responses. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simple yet profound statement encapsulates the essence of Stoic detachment. By recognizing that external events, whether they be other people's opinions, outcomes of our efforts, or even the weather, are beyond our control, we can liberate ourselves from the frustration and anxiety that comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. In today's world, where we are constantly bombarded by information and pressures from all sides, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by things we can't change. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that peace comes from accepting what is outside of our control and focusing our energy on what we can influence, our own mindset and actions. Consider how much mental energy you spend worrying about things you can't control, whether it's other people's reactions, the economy, or global events. Marcus's wisdom suggests that by letting go of these concerns and focusing instead on what we can control, our effort, our reactions, our virtues, we regain a sense of power and clarity. This practice of detachment is not about apathy or disengagement. Rather, it's about wisely directing our attention and energy toward the things that truly matter and that we can actually influence. By letting go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves up to a more peaceful, purposeful existence. Although Stoicism often emphasizes self-mastery and personal virtue, Marcus Aurelius also placed great importance on our duty to others. He believed that humans are naturally social creatures and that part of living a virtuous life involves contributing to the well-being of the community. Marcus wrote, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of the upper and lower teeth." For Marcus, this sense of interconnectedness meant that we have a responsibility to help others, to work together for the common good, and to put the needs of the community above our own self-interest. This teaching is a powerful reminder that Stoicism is not about isolation or self-centeredness. It's about living in harmony with others and recognizing that our individual actions affect the whole. This sense of duty to others was a cornerstone of Marcus's leadership as emperor. Despite his immense power, he consistently tried to act in the best interest of the Roman people, not for personal gain, but out of a sense of moral obligation. He believed that his role as a leader was not a privilege, but a duty to serve. In today's individualistic society, this Stoic teaching is particularly relevant. How often do we focus solely on our own success or well-being, forgetting that we are part of a larger community? Marcus reminds us that living virtuously means recognizing our role in the broader human family and contributing to the welfare of others. Whether it's through acts of kindness, charity, or simply showing up for the people in our lives, we can practice this Stoic principle by remembering that we are all interconnected. When we contribute to the well-being of others, we're also fulfilling our own potential as human beings. This sense of community and cooperation is essential not just for the well-being of society, but for our own sense of purpose and fulfillment. Marcus on dealing with failure, seeing setbacks as lessons. Failure is something we all experience at some point in our lives, but Marcus Aurelius viewed failure differently than most people do today. To Marcus, setbacks and failures were not disasters. They were opportunities for learning and growth. In Meditations, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is perhaps one of his most famous quotes and encapsulates the Stoic mindset of turning obstacles into opportunities. Rather than becoming discouraged by failure, Marcus Aurelius believed that every setback was a chance to practice resilience, patience, and wisdom. He didn't see failure as a reflection of his worth, but as a natural part of life's journey. Every challenge, every obstacle was an opportunity to grow stronger, both mentally and spiritually. Imagine applying this mindset in your own life. Instead of fearing failure or letting it defeat you, you could embrace it as a valuable teacher. What can you learn from your mistakes? How can they help you become wiser and more resilient? Marcus teaches us that failure is not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced as part of the process of becoming a better person. In today's world, where success is often celebrated and failure is stigmatized, Marcus's perspective is refreshing. He reminds us that true growth comes not from avoiding failure, but from how we respond to it. By seeing failure as an opportunity for learning rather than a source of shame, we can develop the resilience needed to navigate life's ups and downs with grace. The wisdom of patience, Marcus on delaying gratification. Marcus Aurelius often emphasized the importance of patience, not just in dealing with others, but in mastering our desires and impulses. One of the hallmarks of Stoic discipline is the ability to delay gratification, to resist the urge for immediate pleasure in favor of long-term fulfillment. In Meditations, Marcus reflected on how patience with oneself and others is a key aspect of inner peace and resilience. He wrote, "You must be patient, wait for what comes, and take advantage of what's in front of you." For Marcus, patience wasn't passive. It was an active exercise in self-control and perspective. He understood that our modern craving for instant results, whether it be success, recognition, or pleasure, often leads to frustration and disappointment. Instead, he advocated for a slow, steady approach to life, where we patiently work towards our goals without getting discouraged by delays or setbacks. Think about how often we are tempted to rush things, whether it's rushing through a project at work, expecting immediate success, or even seeking quick fixes in relationships. Marcus Aurelius' teachings remind us that the most meaningful outcomes in life take time. True mastery, whether in a skill, a career, or personal growth, requires patience and persistence. In a world that celebrates speed and instant gratification, this lesson is especially relevant. By practicing patience, we give ourselves the space to grow, learn, and improve over time. We avoid the stress and burnout that comes from constantly chasing after immediate rewards, and instead, we align ourselves with the natural flow of progress, which often unfolds at a slower, more deliberate pace. Marcus's wisdom encourages us to slow down and appreciate the process, rather than constantly focusing on the end result. By embracing patience, we become more resilient in the face of challenges, and we develop the inner strength to pursue long-term goals without becoming discouraged by temporary setbacks. Focusing on the present moment, the power of now. One of the key tenets of Stoic philosophy is the emphasis on living in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that the past is beyond our control and the future is uncertain. All we truly have is the present moment. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. You can handle just that." For Marcus, focusing on the present wasn't just about mindfulness. It was about fully engaging with what's in front of us, doing the best we can in each moment, and not wasting time or energy on things outside of our control. He understood that dwelling on the past or worrying about the future only distracts us from living a virtuous and fulfilling life in the here and now. In our modern world, where distractions are endless and the pressure to plan for the future is constant, this lesson is more important than ever. How often do we find ourselves replaying past mistakes or anxiously predicting future outcomes? Marcus's teachings remind us that these thoughts are not productive. The only thing we can truly influence is how we act in the present moment. By focusing on the now, we not only reduce anxiety and regret, but also open ourselves up to greater clarity and purpose. Whether we're working, spending time with loved ones, or simply reflecting on our day, being fully present allows us to engage more deeply with life. We stop living in the past or future and start appreciating the richness of the current moment. This doesn't mean we ignore the future or never reflect on the past, but it does mean that our primary focus should always be on what we can control right now. By bringing our attention back to the present, we free ourselves from unnecessary worry and create the space to live more intentionally and with greater peace. Though Marcus Aurelius was an emperor with vast wealth and power, he frequently practiced gratitude for the simple things in life. For Marcus, gratitude wasn't just a fleeting emotion, it was a deliberate practice that helped him maintain perspective and stay grounded in his Stoic principles. He understood that no matter how much or how little we have, gratitude can transform our experience of life. In Meditations, Marcus wrote, "Don't set your mind on things you don't possess, but count the blessings you actually have and think how much you would desire them if they weren't yours." This is a powerful reminder that we often take for granted the things that we currently enjoy. Whether it's our health, our relationships, or the opportunities in front of us, Marcus encourages us to focus on what we have rather than constantly striving for more. Gratitude for Marcus wasn't just about appreciating material things, it was about recognizing the value of each moment, each experience, and each challenge. He believed that even difficult circumstances could be a source of gratitude, as they provide us with the opportunity to grow and strengthen our character. By adopting this mindset, we shift from a mentality of scarcity, where we always feel like something is missing, to one of abundance, where we recognize that we already have more than enough to be content. In today's fast-paced, consumer-driven world, practicing gratitude can be a powerful antidote to dissatisfaction. How often do we find ourselves caught up in the pursuit of more, thinking that the next promotion, the next purchase, or the next achievement will finally make us happy? Marcus teaches us that true contentment comes not from accumulating more, but from appreciating what we already have. Imagine taking a moment each day to reflect on the things you're grateful for. This simple practice can shift your focus from what's lacking to what's present, fostering a deeper sense of fulfillment and peace. Marcus Aurelius believed in the virtue of simplicity. Despite being one of the most powerful men in the world, he often reflected on how little we actually need to live a fulfilling life. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." For Marcus, simplicity wasn't just about material possessions. It was a mindset. He understood that the more we accumulate, whether it's wealth, status, or distractions, the more we complicate our lives. By focusing on what truly matters and letting go of unnecessary attachments, Marcus believed we could lead a more peaceful and purposeful existence. In our modern world, where we are constantly bombarded with messages to buy more, achieve more, and do more, this Stoic lesson is particularly powerful. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that happiness isn't found in external things, but in cultivating a simple, virtuous life. By reducing the clutter, both physical and mental, we make space for what truly matters: our relationships, our personal growth, and our sense of purpose. Simplicity for Marcus wasn't about deprivation, it was about freedom. By letting go of excess, we free ourselves from the constant pursuit of more and focus on what is essential. This minimalist approach to life can help us reduce stress, increase clarity, and find more joy in the present moment. Consider how you might incorporate simplicity into your own life. Are there things, whether physical possessions, commitments, or even thoughts, that are cluttering your life and distracting you from what truly matters? Marcus's teachings encourage us to strip away the unnecessary so that we can live more fully and with greater peace. Understanding nature's flow. Marcus on aligning with the universe. Marcus Aurelius frequently reflected on the idea that the universe operates according to its own natural laws, and that our role is to align ourselves with these laws rather than resist them. He believed that everything in life happens for a reason, in accordance with nature's flow, and that peace comes from accepting this flow rather than fighting against it. In Meditations, Marcus wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." For Marcus, accepting fate wasn't a form of passive resignation. It was an active process of trusting that everything unfolds as it should, and that our job is to respond with virtue and grace. This Stoic principle is about recognizing that while we don't have control over the external events in our lives, we do have control over how we respond to them. Marcus believed that everything that happens is part of a larger, interconnected system, and that by aligning ourselves with this natural order, we can find peace and contentment. In today's world, where we often feel the need to control every aspect of our lives, this lesson is especially relevant. How often do we resist what's happening, trying to force outcomes that aren't in our power? Marcus teaches us that by accepting the natural flow of events and trusting that everything happens for a reason, we can reduce our anxiety and live more harmoniously. This doesn't mean we should be passive or indifferent. Instead, it means that we should focus on what we can control, our thoughts, actions and attitudes, while trusting that the universe will take care of the rest. By aligning ourselves with nature's flow, we create a sense of inner peace that remains unshaken by external events. As we've journeyed through the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, the lessons of Stoicism provide us with powerful tools to navigate the chaos of modern life. The lost teachings of Marcus aren't just ancient philosophy, they are a guide for mastering your inner world, facing life's challenges with resilience, and finding peace amid uncertainty. If you found value in these teachings, imagine what your life could look like if you applied even one of these principles daily. Now, it's time for you to take that next step. Reflect on the Stoic lessons that resonated with you the most. Maybe it's mastering anger, embracing patience, or focusing on the present moment. Start small, but start today. Implement one Stoic practice into your routine and see how it transforms your mindset and actions. Share this journey with those around you, because wisdom, after all, is best when it's shared. If you want to dive deeper into more ancient wisdom, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and join our community of like-minded learners striving to live virtuously in a modern world. Together, we can apply Marcus's lessons to grow stronger, more resilient, and more at peace with our lives. Remember, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Stay blessed, stay stoic, and continue your journey toward wisdom and peace.